The evening had been calm until her mother spoke the words that shattered Isla's fragile peace. "Your spare apartment is perfect for your brother's family." Her mother announced with a tone that carried no question, only finality. "Adil and Sana will be moving in next month. It's time you did something useful with that place." Isla froze, the spoon in her hand clinking against her teacup. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. Her apartment, her father's last gift to her, she had never intended it to be anyone's family charity project. That apartment was her safe place, her future security. The one thing in her life that she knew was untouchable. "Excuse me," Isla finally managed, her voice trembling between disbelief and anger. "When did I agree to this?" Her mother sighed impatiently, as though Isla were a stubborn child throwing a tantrum. "Adil has a growing family. His children need more space, and you live alone, Isla. What's the point of keeping that apartment locked up? It's selfish not to share when your brother needs it." Selfish, the word stabbed her chest. Isla blinked back the sting in her eyes. How many times had she heard that accusation before? Whenever she saved money instead of lending it to Adil, whenever she chose her own dreams over the family's constant demands. And now her mother used it again this time, to strip her of the very last piece of her father's legacy. Adil smirked from across the table, his arm around his wife Sana's chair. Sana lowered her eyes demurely, though Isla could see the flicker of triumph in her smile. They had planned this. They had spoken to her mother behind her back. "Don't look so shocked," Adil said lightly, sipping his tea. "It's not like you need it. You've always said it was too big for you to live in anyway. Think of this as helping family. Helping family." Another weaponized phrase. Isla's fists tightened in her lap. They didn't mean helping family. They meant sacrificing her for their comfort. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, gentle yet firm, from years ago. "This apartment is yours, Isla. Promise me you won't let anyone take it away from you. It's your security, your independence." And here they were, trying to strip it from her as though his words meant nothing. Isla rose from her chair, her appetite gone. "I'll think about it," she muttered, unwilling to start a full war at the dinner table. But inside, fire burned. The next morning, unable to rest, she drove to the apartment. She hadn't visited in months. Dust clung to the stairwell as she climbed, her mind replaying every word from last night. She needed to reassure herself that the apartment was still hers, that no one could touch it. But when she pushed the key into the lock, the door didn't budge. Confused, she tried again, only to realize the lock had been changed. Panic shot through her. Heart pounding, she knocked. After a long pause, the door opened a crack and a man stood there, tall, quiet-eyed, wearing a faded shirt as if he'd just come home from work. "Yes," he asked calmly. Isla's breath caught. Who are you, and why are you in my apartment?" The man tilted his head. "Your apartment?" Her voice sharpened. "Yes, this is my apartment. My father left it to me. Who gave you the right to be here?" He didn't flinch under her anger. Instead, he opened the door wider, revealing a tidy living room behind him. Not dusty and abandoned, but lived-in. Books on the table, a kettle on the stove, curtains drawn open to let in light. "My name is Rihan," he said evenly, "and I've been living here for over a year. Your father gave me permission. In fact, he signed a lease with me before he passed away." The words struck Isla harder than her mother's announcement. A stranger, in her apartment, with her father's permission, none of this made sense. Her throat went dry. She stepped back, her world tilting. "That's not possible," she whispered. "My father would have told me," but deep down, a small, uneasy doubt crept in. Her father had been a man of secrets, always protecting her from burdens. Could this Rihan be telling the truth? Behind her, the echo of her mother's voice rang again. "Your spare apartment is perfect for your brother's family." Isla realized, with dawning dread, that nothing about this situation was simple, and that this apartment, her father's last gift, was about to drag her into the deepest betrayal she had ever faced. Isla spent the entire night tossing in bed. her mind a battlefield of confusion. In anger, her mother's declaration had been bad enough, but the sight of a stranger living in her apartment felt like betrayal layered upon betrayal. She had marched into the building with certainty, clinging to the belief that her father's gift was untouchable. Yet now the calm face of that tenant Rehan haunted her. His words rang in her ears. "Your father gave me permission. He signed a lease with me before he passed away." The next morning, unable to bear the uncertainty, Isla returned to the apartment. Her hands trembled as she knocked. This time, Rehan opened the door without hesitation, as though he had expected her. "You came back," he said simply, stepping aside. "Please, come in. We should talk." Isla hesitated, then crossed the threshold. She braced herself for an invasion of dust and emptiness, but instead found warmth. The apartment smelled faintly of tea and fresh bread. A soft rug lay across the living room floor. Family photos, not hers, hung neatly on the wall. It wasn't her father's apartment anymore. It was someone's home. The sight filled her with both outrage and an odd, inexplicable guilt. "Explain," she demanded, her arms folded tightly. "What lease? What are you talking about?" Rehan reached into a drawer by the bookshelf and pulled out a worn folder. He laid it gently on the table and slid it toward her. Inside was a stack of documents, neatly signed papers bearing her father's familiar signature. Isla's breath caught as she scanned them. Her father's name was there, his handwriting, his deliberate strokes. He had indeed drawn up a rental agreement with this man, granting him the right to stay indefinitely as long as rent was paid. The dates went back nearly 2 years before his death. Isla's throat tightened. Why? Why didn't he tell me? Rehan's expression softened. "Because he didn't want to burden you. He told me about you, about how much he loved you. He said you had carried enough on your shoulders already. He didn't want you to worry about the place being empty or about money. He wanted it lived in, cared for." The words broke something in her. For so long, she had believed her father left her that apartment solely as her lifeline, something untouched, just for her. To learn that he had already entrusted it to someone else felt like a betrayal, even if it was done out of love. Her eyes burned, but she refused to let the tears fall. "So you're saying my father gave my apartment to a stranger, and I'm just supposed to accept that?" Rehan met her gaze evenly. "I'm not your enemy, Isla. I've been paying rent every month. I have receipts if you want to see them. Your father trusted me, and I respected him." He paused, his voice steady but carrying weight. "I promised him I would never let this place fall into ruin. And I promised him I would never leave until it was right." "Until it was right," she repeated sharply. "What does that even mean?" Rehan hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "It means your father left things unfinished. He wanted me here for a reason. Maybe it was to protect this apartment. Maybe it was to protect you." Isla's chest tightened. She wanted to scream, to tell him to leave, to reclaim what was hers. But a small voice inside her whispered that Rehan was not lying. The documents were real. Her father's signature was undeniable, and the way Rehan spoke without greed, without entitlement, was different from her brother's arrogant demands. Still, the thought of facing her mother and Adil with this truth filled her with dread. She could already hear their voices. "Throw him out, Isla. He's just some tenant. Don't be so weak, weak." Selfish, those words had been chained to her all her life. But as she looked around the apartment, as she listened to Rehan's calm tone, she realized something. This wasn't just about a property dispute. It was about her father's wishes, about trust, about who truly respected his memory. "Show me everything," she said finally, sinking into a chair. "All the papers, every letter, whatever my father left behind with you. I need to know the truth." Rehan nodded, his eyes steady. He pulled out more documents, some handwritten notes from her father, even an old photograph of the two of them standing together outside the apartment. And for the first time, Isla felt the ground shift beneath her feet, not from betrayal, but from the weight of secrets she had never known existed. For a few days, Isla kept the discovery to herself. She visited the apartment quietly, learning more from Rehan about the documents her father had left. Some were nothing more than scribbled notes, reminders her father had written in his distinct, hurried handwriting. Rihan is trustworthy. If anything happens, Isla must know he is part of my plan. But the idea of telling her family gnawed at her. She knew exactly how they would react. To her mother and Adil, Rihan would never be a trusted tenant. He would be an obstacle, something to be removed so their plans could move forward, and she was right. At dinner one evening, her mother brought up the apartment again. So, when are you giving Adil the keys? He needs to start moving things in. The children are cramped where they are now. Isla swallowed hard. There's already someone living there. Her mother's fork clattered against the plate. What nonsense are you talking about? His name is Rihan. Father gave him a lease. Legally, he has every right to be there. Adil's face turned red. What kind of joke is this, Isla? That place is yours, not some tenant's playground. Just throw him out, change the locks, call the police if you have to. I can't, she said firmly, though her voice quivered. Father wanted him there. There are documents, Adil, his signature, his instructions. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Isla, you don't understand. Your father isn't here anymore. You are. That apartment should serve the living, not the dead. And your brother's family needs it more than some stranger does. It was like being stabbed twice once by her mother's dismissal of her father's wishes, and again by the realization that her mother saw Adil's needs as more important than hers. That night, Isla overheard a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. As she walked past the living room, her mother's hushed voice reached her ears. She's too soft, her mother whispered. She doesn't know how to stand firm. If we push harder, she'll give in. Adil chuckled. Don't worry, I've already spoken to someone. If she refuses, we'll make her desperate. She doesn't have much savings, a little financial pressure, and she'll be begging us to take the place off her hands. Isla froze, her heart hammering, begging them. Her own brother was plotting against her, like a predator circling prey. She pressed her back against the wall, tears stinging her eyes. It wasn't just about the apartment anymore. It was about power, about control. They didn't see her as family, they saw her as a hurdle to be pushed aside. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. When she returned to the apartment the next day, her composure cracked. Rihan noticed immediately what happened, he asked gently. Isla sank into the sofa, burying her face in her hands. They're planning to ruin me, Rihan, my own mother, my own brother. They want me to break, so I'll give them the apartment. I heard them talking. Rihan was silent for a moment, then placed a steaming cup of tea in front of her. Your father warned me this might happen, he said quietly. Her head shot up. What do you mean? Rihan's eyes softened with sympathy. He knew your family favored Adil. He told me when I'm gone, they'll try to corner Isla, make sure she has someone on her side. He trusted me to be that someone. The tears Isla had been holding back spilled freely. Her father had known. He had seen this betrayal coming. And he had chosen Rihan, not her mother, not her brother, to safeguard her future. For the first time, Isla felt something shift within her. The helplessness, the years of being called selfish and weak. It all burned into a quiet resolve. They think I'll give in, she whispered, her fists tightening. But I won't, not this time. Rihan nodded. Good, because you don't have to fight this alone. We'll make sure your father's wishes are honored, and we'll make sure they regret underestimating you. Isla looked up at him, her heart heavy but steady. The betrayal of her family had scarred her deeply, but from that wound, the seed of revenge was beginning to grow. The weeks that followed were a silent war. Isla pretended to be uncertain, letting her mother and Adil believe that their constant pressure was working. She allowed their sharp words to fall on her like rain, cold, relentless, but unable to drown the fire that had begun to burn inside her. What they didn't know was that, with Rihan's help, she had been gathering everything. Her father's will, the legal lease agreements, bank receipts of Rihan's regular rent payments, even notes in her father's handwriting about his intentions. Piece by piece, Isla was building a shield, one her family could not shatter. On the day her mother declared that Adel's family would officially move in, Isla invited everyone to the apartment. She feigned submission, her eyes downcast, her voice soft. "If this is what you all want, fine, come tomorrow, we'll settle everything." Adel's grin was smug, victorious. "Finally, Isla, you made the right choice. I'll bring the truck." But when they arrived the next day, Adel, his wife, their children, and her mother in tow, they found something they hadn't expected. The living room wasn't empty. It was neatly arranged, Rihan standing tall at the center, documents spread across the table. "What is this?" Adel demanded, his voice sharp. Isla's voice was calm, stronger than it had ever been. "This," she said, lifting the first document, "is my father's will. It clearly states that this apartment belongs to me. Solely me, not shared, not for family use, mine." Her mother frowned. "Isla, don't twist things. Your father would have wanted a no." Isla cut her off firmly. "He wanted this. His words are in writing. He even signed a lease with Rihan here, giving him the right to live here as long as he wished. These are the receipts, the agreements, and his notes. Everything is legal. Everything is binding." She turned her gaze to her brother. "And you, Adel, you want me to show everyone the messages you sent about selling this place once you got it? Do you want them to see how you plan to trick your own sister?" Adel's face drained of color. Sana shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the documents, realizing their scheme was unraveling in front of them. Isla continued, her voice ringing with quiet triumph. "You thought I was weak. You thought you could bully me into surrendering my father's last gift, but you forgot. He trusted me, and he trusted Rihan to protect what mattered. That trust is stronger than your greed." Her mother's lips trembled. For once, she had no words. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the distant sound of traffic outside. Adel's children tugged at his sleeve, confused by the tension. He cursed under his breath, then turned to Isla, his anger barely contained. "This isn't over." But Isla only smiled calm, unshaken. "It is, because the law is on my side. And so is Father's memory. If you try anything again, I won't hesitate to protect what's mine, even if that means taking you to court." For the first time, Adel saw that his sister was no longer the quiet, pliable woman he had taken for granted. He gathered his family and stormed out, his pride shattered. Her mother lingered for a moment, her eyes full of something between shame and stubbornness. But even she followed after Adel, leaving Isla standing in the apartment's warm light. Rihan stepped closer, a small smile touching his lips. "You did it," Isla exhaled deeply, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "We did it. Father was right. You were meant to be here." In that moment, she realized that her revenge hadn't been about cruelty or punishment. It had been about reclaiming her dignity, proving that her father's trust had not been misplaced, and showing her family that she could no longer be trampled. The apartment, once a battleground, now felt like a sanctuary again. And as Rihan handed her a cup of tea, the way her father once did, Isla knew this wasn't just the end of betrayal. It was the beginning of her own independence, stronger and sweeter than ever before.